Hello out there. Happy Friday. This video is likely coming to you super late because I had a bit of an epiphany. Welcome back to my channel, and if you're new here, welcome. My name is Givehand, and I am a pen lover and a tarot reader and an astrologer and a creative, a writer, a poet, and a bookbinder. I do a lot of things. I am multi-talented and multi-gifted, and I invite you here because I love talking all things fountain pens, stationery, planners, writing, tarot, journaling, art. So strap in. We're going to have a little conversation about fountain pens and ink. Thanks for being here. So this video is actually a restart of two things. So this is the second Fountain Pen Friday for 2025. And at the same time, this is the restart of one of my old series called 10 on the 10th. Now, 10 on the 10th used to be something completely different when I did it back in, I don't know, we'll say 2015 or so, somewhere around that time, maybe sooner, earlier. But at that time, I was sharing my mixed media inspiration deck, which I know many of you out there have. Thank you so much for the support of that lovely very first product. And I was pulling 10 cards and doing a journal spread with those 10 cards. Well, I love 10 on the 10th. And so this year I am restarting it, and I'm doing something a little different for 10 on the 10th this year. So stay tuned. You'll see different things happening, but this first 10 on the 10th also happens to fall on a Friday, which means it's a Fountain Pen Friday and a 10 on the 10th. So it's like two for one. So welcome, and let's talk fountain pens. So I think I'll be doing a monthly, currently inked, probably maybe like, once a month, I'll do a currently inked conversation with you all, and I'll talk about inks and I'll do the whole thing. For this first one, I needed to keep it super simple, so I went ahead and inked up the 10 pens. And just to be fully transparent, I always have way more than 10 pens inked in a month. However, I usually have a certain set of pens that all meet a certain kind of criteria. So I thought instead of watching me swatch ink, I would just talk about the inks a little bit that I have in the pens that are my 10 that I want to speak on today. If you watched my last Fountain Pen Friday video, you saw me mention a couple of these because I shared my 5 favorites plus a bonus for beginners, my 5 favorite fountain pens for beginners. So you may see some repeats here, but I suspect you're going to see some others as well. So I will just hit the highlights to keep this video short, but know that I will be back to talk more this year about inks, specifically about this whole concept of having currently inked pens, so on and so forth. So for today, we're going to keep it simple. We're going to keep it quick. And I'm just going to show you the 10 pens that are kind of like all hitting on the things that matter to me to make sure I always have inked. So with that said, I always have at least one TWSBI inked, and I always have at least one Lamy Safari. These two are my standard sort of go-to pens. If I had a go bag, one of these or both of these would be in there, a TWSBI and a Lamy. These are my collector pens. I love collecting them. They have, lots of wonderful features about them, and they're just great all around pens. They always write. They're just wonderful pens. So they're easy for me at this point. So that they check that first box. That first box is always having one Lamy Safari and one TWSBI Eco inked at all times. The other is I like to always have a piston fill pen so that I can see my ink in the body of the pen. So that's another check. And I actually have 3 TWSBIs here that I will pull out. So I've got 3 TWSBIs. I actually have probably 8 TWSBIs inked right now, but that's a whole other conversation. But for this, because they also fit, they check another box, and that other box is always having at least one blue, because I'm not really a big fan of blue inks, and we'll talk about that when I talk about inks. But I love this TWSBI Teal, and I love this Winter October ink, and I'm going to hold this up to the camera in a moment here so you can see. This is a shimmer ink. I love shimmer inks. That's my favorite type of ink. So I always have some shimmer inks. So this TWSBI checks that box. I like to have a light colored ink, usually a yellow, orangey kind of color, or a light gray, or something in that vein that makes it very different from the other colors. I tend to lean towards earth tone colors in my ink choices, and every now and then I'll throw in a red or a pop of something like a pink. So this terracotta pen, the Safari, has the orange bronze Lamy in it, which to me, it just feels so super orangey. It feels less, oh, that's still wet a little bit. It feels a little less bronzy and a little more orangey. So there's that. So checking that box of having a light colored ink. It's really important to me that I always have a really dark black ink, because I like to write with a dark black ink, just really super black. So this Sheaffer jet black cartridge is one of my favorites. I think it's just so, it's like a rich deep black. My other favorite black is Raven by Levenger. Their Raven ink is really dark black as well. So there's those three. So checking off that box of having black ink, a really dark deep black, having a light colored ink, and having something that is kind of a blue. I also always have to have a purple. So I've got my, this Diamine electric pink is actually more purple than pink to me, and it has some shimmer in it, so I really love that. And then I really love having something that is in that brown bronzy family. So that checks the box for that TWSBI Eco Yellow, has the pen BBS number 235 in it. And it's a little bit of a brown with a hint of red shimmer in it. It's a really beautiful color. I also really love having an eyedropper pen. So that checks that. The box that's being checked there is an eyedropper pen, and there's tons of videos of people talking about eyedroppers, but I will do a video this year giving you sort of my perspective, my view on eyedropper pens. They are messy when you first start working with them. There are some nuances. They require a little extra love, attention, and effort, but I really love how much ink you get. I mean, this is a ginormous amount of ink, okay? It's a lot. And I also really love just seeing that shimmer move around in there. So this is a Mayfair custom pen that I had made. And one of my favorites. It's a little shorty, but it's like a pocket pen, but when you screw the cap onto the bottom, onto the base, it becomes a little bit longer, and it's still a nice, I like the size of it. I like that it's kind of like double walled in there. You can kind of see that ink floating around in there. He did a great job. So I'll link all the pens and things below. All right, so there's that. And then I like to have a nice big pen. And this Opus 88 Confetti it checks that box. This is a really big, large size pen, and I love it. It also has a number 6 nib, so a really longer nib, and it's just a great weight. It writes beautifully. This nib is gorgeously like butter on the page. It's just really beautiful. And I have inked this one with pen BBS Moon Over Mountain. It looks a lot like that electric pink, but depending on how you stand and look, it's slightly different. So also piston fill, and you can kind of see the ink. It's not as clear as the Mayfair pen, but Yeah, and that spiced apple, I didn't talk about that spiced apple ink in that Mayfair. It is red with a hint of green, and it was a part of the ink advent calendar. I don't remember which year, but yummy. Beautiful ink. I hope they turn it into a one that they always have. I also like to always have a very, very fine nib, and this Lamy has a fine nib in it, and so that checks the box. But I also already had this Pilot Retro Pop Orange fine in, and they are actually two very different fine nibs. They don't write the same, so I like to have a very fine line in case I want to do any like doodling or line work, you know, on white paper. So this is a really good one. Now this happens to have the Pilot Mixable Orange cartridge in it, but if you ask me, it's not really orange. It feels more brown, but that could be because of whatever ink I had in there previous wasn't all the way out. So don't judge this one by what's on the table there. And then the next thing that I always like to have inked each month is at least one retractable fountain pen. And this is my favorite of my, oh no, that's not true. It's one of my favorites of my retractables. This is the Pilot Vanishing Point, and I don't know the real name, but in the pen world, most of us are Star Wars geeks in some shape, form, or fashion. So we all call this the Stormtrooper Vanishing Point. I'm sure that is not the official name from Pilot, but we lovingly call it the Stormtrooper. So I really love this pen. And so it's a retractable nib. And so I always like to have at least one retractable inked and working with. And this one has a bold nib, which if you hang around on this channel long enough, you will discover that bold is my favorite nib size. Broad, bold, it depends on what company you buy the pen from, but broad nib, bold nib, that is absolutely my favorite because you can really get some juicy, you can put some shimmer inks in there and really get some beautiful variation in the inks that way. So that has the Mixable black, and it's a nice black, but it's more of a gray black. The Sheaffer black is very, very dark, so they are a little bit different. Last but not least, I also always love to have at least one new pen that I'm trying out for the first time. Because there are lots of pens that I actually have that I haven't inked. Don't judge me. Hold your judgment. Save that judgment. Keep that judgment in your pocket. But I do have a bunch of pens that I have yet to ink just because, well, I have a lot of pens and I don't want to just have a lot of random pens inked that I'm not using. So this, the pen that's checking the new box is this Ferris Wheel Press Poison Envy pen. This pen, when it first came out, I was like, oh, it's cute, I'm gonna grab it. And then when I went like the next day to get the pen, they had sold out, and it took forever for them to get it back. Then they sold out again before I got it, and I was like, oh my god. And then like a year and a half went by and they finally got them back in stock. So here I am finally with the Carousel, the Ferris Wheel Press Carousel pen in Poison Envy. I also was able to snag a bottle of the ink, which was, oh my god, for the longest time, super hard to get. But it has a beautiful green tint to it. It just, whew, it's so yummy. It's yummy. And it did not disappoint on the paper either. So this is a medium nib. This pen is really lightweight, which is another sort of thing that I like to have at least one really lightweight pen. Because sometimes I have heavy pens. The Vanishing Point is a heavier pen. The OPUS 88 is a heavier pen. All the others are pretty much standard, but I do like to have something that's more on the light in terms of weight, on the light end of the spectrum. And so this pen checks that box for me. So these are the currently inked 10 on the 10th pens, and I would love to hear how you choose which pens you have inked at any given time. it's really important to me that I do have a variety of pens because I'm a color coder. When I journal, when I write, when I take notes for meetings or in classes that I am taking inside of our online academy with our core teachers, if I'm not the one teaching, if my husband's teaching something, if I become a student. And so I like to color code my notes, and I like to have distinct differences between the inks when I'm shifting from one phone call to another phone call with a client. So I do have a lot of different pens inked for that reason. And I do have, at this point in my pen journey, I do have a very specific checklist of what I like to have inked at all times. I think the only thing that isn't being represented here right now maybe is, I don't know, maybe one of my little, what I call my bump around pens. And those would be like the Oli pens, or the Perkios, the Kaweco Perkio would fall in that category. And I do have those inked right now. They just didn't make the 10 for today. So this is something that I'll be sharing. Also, this journal that I'm using, I'll go ahead and tell you a couple of the things. This journal that I'm using is a Tomoe River notebook. It's an A5 dot grid. It's got cream colored paper in it. And it, to me, it's my favorite pen for fountain pens. It allows you to see the inks. So let's see if my camera will behave here and let you see some of the shimmer. I don't know, it doesn't quite want you to see it, but let me try one little thing here. And let's see if we can't get it in the camera. All right, so this pen BBS, you can see some of that shimmer in there. That TWSBI Eco, you might be able to see, there it is. You can see some of the shimmer in that one. You can see how dark that Sheaffer Jet Black is. The Ferris wheel press, oh, look at the pen BBS there. You can really see that shimmer in there. That Ferris wheel press, you can see the hint of green on the edges. That spiced apple, at this angle, you can see some of that green shimmer in there. Moving on up to the Moon Over Mountain, you can see the shimmer. And you can look and see how that and the Diamine Electric Pink, they look so similar to me. That Pilot Retro Pop, I think that's two colors mixing together. I don't think that's the true color of that ink. And then you can tell that that Pilot Vanishing Point, that mixable black, is not as black as that jet black here at the bottom. So those are my pens for now and my inks for now. And this has been another 10 on the 10th. Thank you all so much for being here, for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe so that I know you want to keep hearing about my inks. I'm going to share that anyway because I love talking about fountain pens and inks. It brings me joy. So I just want to spread joy into the world. So I'll see you back here. Stay tuned because this month I will be starting a new series. Yes, lots of series starting this year. That works for me. It keeps me on a schedule. It keeps me, organized. I am going to start live streaming. I don't want to give you a date yet because I don't know when, but it'll be on Sundays. So stay tuned for the Sunday shenanigans. Where I'll be live streaming and chatting with you about a bunch of different things. So I'd love to hear below what inks you're working with right now. What's your favorite? What ink do I absolutely need to go check out because you think it is just the bee's knees? And what pen are you loving right now the most? I am 100% completely digging on this month. This Sheaffer, it's so basic, but it is yummy. I love the way it writes. It's tried and true. So this Sheaffer is really making me happy. That little pearl on the finial there also makes me super happy. And this is a pen I've had for a really long time, and it was gifted to me. And I love it very much. So I'll see you all in the next video. Thank you for being here. I will see you in all the places and spaces. Take care. Have a beautiful rest of your now. Bye.